it reinforced a message to me that this condition is to be kept to yourself, because your parents have grown up and they don't really want to talk to anyone else about it. You have to do the same. Africans, we have this warrior mentality that we can make it through any situation. We don't need help. We don't need other people to rescue us. But in reality, that is doing yourself a favor. Allowing people to help you is allowing people to rescue you sometimes. Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to be talking about sickle cell anemia. We're going to be talking about sickle cell disease, sickle cell carriers. We're going to be talking about and raising awareness for my condition. And it's going to shock some of you, a lot of you, all of you, I don't know, to say the least, because to me, I feel like personally, I look like a very healthy person. I look like a very normal 20-year-old black girl. And when I was younger, maybe it could have been something that people would have spotted a lot more easily, with, you know, yellow eyes, jaundice and all of that. You know, it could have been something that a lot of people would have picked up on. But now I feel like I'm getting to a stage where I'm managing my condition so well that it even surprises me when I get painful episodes, because it's like, wow, I've managed it so well. Where the heck did I go wrong? So I wanted to do a YouTube video kind of as an encourager, a motivator, and just to highlight these common issues that I face as a patient, as a sickle cell patient, even though I'm a doctor. Some of these tips I found so useful, especially coming from a position where I was constantly with my parents. I was constantly with people, at least some people that knew about my condition. So I felt kind of cushioned by that. But then coming into a completely separate environment in university, I've learned so much about what it means to really be in control of your health. And I hope I can share some of those tips with you guys. I know it's a shock to some of you guys to hear that I have sickle cell, but it scared me to tell a lot of people, because I don't want to ever release a message that, oh, this girl just wants pity. In reality, I should definitely not be scared about releasing something like this to the world, because a lot of young black people have sickle cell. So without further ado, let's get into this video. I'm just going to be talking about my journey as a sickle cell warrior. I'm scared. Go easy on me, guys. Okay, this video is actually going to be split into two parts. The first part is just talking about my journey and kind of my trajectory from birth to now. And then the second part of the video is actually talking about the tips that I have found really useful in university, with all of this independence in managing my condition and actually staying healthy and without crisis for 2 years. Okay, so about my journey. I was not born in the UK, I was born in Nigeria. By the time I was born, my parents didn't actually have an understanding of what sickle cell was. And they didn't actually know that they were carriers of this gene. And I will explain a little bit about sickle cell, but let me just go through this introduction bit first. So they didn't know that they were carriers of this faulty hemoglobin gene. So they found each other, obviously they got married, they had me, and at that time the healthcare system in Nigeria was not the best. It still, I don't think, is the best. And so I was born and I was not diagnosed. They ticked me off as a healthy, bouncing baby girl from the ages of 1 to 3. I think that's when my parents started to realize that maybe this baby wasn't as healthy as she was pronounced to be. So I think that's at the point where, I would get painful crises. I would start crying like non-stop, and my parents would, try and find out what was wrong. They would pick me up, they would try and massage in my little limbs, and it wasn't working out because they didn't really have a diagnosis. No one had really told them what their child would have. So this kept on happening for quite some time, and they brought me into a health clinic, and that was when they did a blood test and they found out that I had sickle cell anemia, something that should have been diagnosed even before I was born. So my parents received kind of very little information as to how to handle a sickle cell baby, especially health treatment around that time, that it was honestly just pain medication that they would have to buy for me whenever I would get into those pain episodes. So let me just explain a little bit about sickle cell for some of you guys who don't know what this condition is. Sickle cell is a hereditary condition, so you inherit it from your parents who would carry a faulty gene. So it's a genetic condition, and that gene basically means that your hemoglobin will develop faultily. So normally your hemoglobin will be nice and healthy, and it means that when it's inputted into your red blood cells, your red blood cells will be this nice donut shape, and so that they can flow through blood vessels and they won't get into any issues. However, with sickle cell patients like myself, we inherit two faulty hemoglobin genes, which means that most of our hemoglobin protein, when it's produced, it actually doesn't form properly. So it means that the blood cells don't appear in this donut shape, they appear in this sickle C-shaped cell. And that means that when they're flowing around joints and curvatures of your body and the vessels that go around your limbs and all of that, they are more likely to stick to each other. They're more likely to get stuck around these vessels. And when they start to block off these vessels, that part of the leg or the arm or the stomach, which is not receiving blood supply anymore, is not receiving oxygen, that part starts to get pain. It's called a sickle cell crisis. So that's the term that I use a lot in this video. So it's called a crisis, which means that this person or this patient or this baby, this child, this teenager is going to go through a lot of pain in this acute episode. And it can last days, it can last hours, it can last minutes, it can last weeks. There are some crises which last months, and there are a lot of downstream effects. If that part of your body is not receiving really good oxygen supply, you won't just get pain, you'll get a lot of other symptoms as well. So you may not be able to eat properly if it's affecting your digestive systems. If it's affecting your legs, you definitely won't be able to walk. I can attest to that one, for real. You won't be able to walk. If it's affecting your arms, you won't be able to lift stuff. There is a lot of functional compromise that comes with this condition. If you get a situation where it affects the blood vessels in your brain, you could get strokes. You know, there are a lot of things that come out of just that one acute onset of crisis. That's kind of a summary of sickle cell. Just have that at the back of your head whilst I continue to talk. So it got to a stage where I was between the ages of 3 and 7, and obviously I was going through a lot of crisis after a lot of crisis. My parents were increasingly looking for other ways for me to be better, for me to get to a position where, you know, I was really healthy and I was pain-free. So they made a decision. Obviously it was a lot of factors, it wasn't just my health, to relocate to the UK. 2007, obviously I was 7 years old. I don't really remember too much about this, but I do recall asking my parents, and that initial period of me coming from a very hot country, which, you know, is really great for sickle cell patients, and then coming through a really cold country like the UK, especially for me as a 7-year-old child who was going through pain crises before in Nigeria, let alone when I came into this whole new climate. And it was really painful for me in the first couple of months. But after a while, we got NHS access. We were able to get a consultant. We were going to sickle cell focus groups, and it was getting my parents in the community of people who were raising children with sickle cell, and it was improving their knowledge of it as well. But it didn't make my condition any less of a nightmare to go through, because there was still so much crippling fear. Like, my parents didn't want me to tell other people as well, because, you know, taboo and myths and stuff like that. It reinforced a message to me that this condition is to be kept to yourself, because your parents have grown up and they don't really want to talk to anyone else about it, and they're not really open about this to anyone. That this condition, you have to do the same. Like, you have to never tell anyone about this. And it just reinforced that mindset to me. So when I was growing up as a teenager, I was getting very jaundiced at a certain point, and when people would comment, like, I would be called really insensitive names. I don't know, I would just be called Dracula. I would be called Yellow Eyes. I would be called Vampire. Like, oh, why are your eyes so red? Having to deal with the discomfort of, first of all, not knowing, you know, why you're in this position of being so different from other people, but also realizing that your condition is so visible to people that they can actually see it, name call you, and still not know how it affects you. That really, like, it dug deep in me. I grew up not having the confidence to speak to anyone, not my friends, not my peers, not people who were supposed to help me about this condition. I was just very timid and protective about it. I think 1 year before I got accepted to university, so around that 2017, 2018 period, was where it started to really get better. So I got a consultant, hematologist, being able to talk to someone who was going to follow up with you and make sure that your prescriptions are due and on time. That continuity was something that I really didn't have an experience of. My consultant was able to put me onto hydroxyurea. Hydroxyurea is one of the most known medications for sickle cell anemia, and we didn't even know this drug even existed. But this drug basically increases the fetal hemoglobin levels, which are normal hemoglobin. They're not the faulty hemoglobin that I have. So it means that you basically have more normal red blood cells in your body as opposed to sickle cell blood cells. It means you have less chances of developing a crisis, and it did exactly that for me. It's been 2 years, I think, since I was started on hydroxyurea, and it's been really good in preventing crises. I haven't had a major crisis since 2018 to this day. To God really be the glory, and it's going to continue to be that way. Or if you do have sickle cell, these are some tips that I have found really helpful, that have helped me with this independence transition from being completely reliant on your parents, on, you know, pediatrics and stuff like that, to being on your own 2 feet, to being in university and having to look after yourself. These are some tips that I've really found useful. First of all, familiarize yourself with the people that you will need to contact if you're in a position where you're in a crisis and you need to contact someone. Know your consultant, know who your specialist nurse is. If you have a hematologist in the hospital that you're in, try and find out, can I be a part of their clinics? Can I have that continuity? But I feel like it's so important to have a relationship with the healthcare professionals, that you can actually be able to call them up if you have any doubts or worries. Obviously, you know, you still respect their clinics and respect the times that they have scheduled for you, but having that continuity has really made that difference with my condition as well. So I would say, ultimately, make sure you know who is here for you, who is going to have your back in situations where you need that support, you need that help, you need advice. Who is there for you to call? Second thing I would say is stay on top of your health. You know yourself more than your parents will ever know you. You need to have an understanding of the things that you do that will trigger crises, and don't do them. For example, I know for me, swimming is a massive trigger for a crisis. I've had so many times in the past where I literally just recall being in the water, having fun, and literally as soon as I come out of the water, my entire body is in pain. Like, it's literally crippling pain. Like, I can't move, I can't breathe, I can't speak. Just for any future situations, swimming is not the place for me to be. Like, knowing the situations that you put your body in that you're not supposed to be in, and that means that your condition is definitely going to deteriorate if you're in that certain situation. I guess my third point is to understand the medications that you are taking and understand the different options that you have. We didn't have a care plan, which is something that you need as a sickle cell patient. You need a care plan. So if somebody is just whisking you into A&E, they don't know who you are, then they can literally just present this care plan to the A&E doctors and be like, okay, this person has sickle cell. If they say they're in pain, please administer morphine or codeine or this medication. That was something that I just did not know that I needed. So that is something that I really emphasize. Know the options of treatments, know what you have available, know what you also don't have, and get it if you can. The fourth tip that I have is to tell people who are going to be in every environment that you envision yourself being in. So for example, 7 days in the week, you might spend some of those days in school, you might spend some of those hours in church, you might spend some of those hours in after school activities. You need to have somebody in each of those environments that is aware of your condition. If you're in university especially, can I emphasize to you, if you have a flatmate, if you have a roommate, if you're staying in halls or accommodation, that somebody who is with you in that space knows your condition. Somebody who is with you in your lecture theatre, make sure they know about your condition. Don't hide it just to save face. Please make sure that you are being safe by letting these people know that, okay, like it might get to a position where I need you to call the ambulance, and this is how you will know. They won't know unless you tell them, and it's so important, it's so vital. I cannot stress this enough. The fifth is don't be embarrassed to ask for help. It's not a sign of weakness. Africans, we have this warrior mentality that we can make it through any situation. We don't need help, we don't need other people to rescue us. But in reality, that is doing yourself a favor. Allowing people to help you is allowing people to rescue you sometimes. This is something that I'm still learning to this day. If you do have sickle cell, then please hold these 5 tips to heart. Share this video. You don't know who you might share it to, who just hasn't told you that they're going through something or they have this condition. It needs to be reinforced for people who just have the attainment of, I just want to be healthy, I just want to be pain-free. You can be pain-free and more. I don't know if somebody needed to hear that, but I definitely did when I was younger. I hope this video has helped you guys. You know what the drill is. Please give this a thumbs up. Please leave a comment down below. Without further ado, I'm gonna wrap this video here, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.